I'm going to make a statement today that you may or may not agree with, but I think that if you think about it long enough, you will agree with me. And it is this: we have problems. We, as people, have big problems in this world. And we're going to talk about those today and the solutions that we have from the book of Hebrews. But I'm going to really narrow it down into two categories, okay? Two categories. One is that we have messed up this world so bad ourselves and we're not able to control things. And number two is that we're all headed toward death. Now that's pretty round, right? Because when you say, boy, we messed up the world, we messed things up politically. We have immorality everywhere. We have constant wars. We have constant court cases. And my wife and I were just talking not too long ago about how much money we could save if we didn't have to have police officers, security guards, even courts. People would just, like get along. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? We have messed up things so much, even environmentally. Just, we've just really messed up so much in this world. And we are also headed toward death, which is the direction for all of us. We can only control our health for so long. We can eat right, we can exercise, we can do all these things. And so we have death that's coming, and death causes a lot of our problems too, because a lot of the sadness and tragedies we go through is because of death, is because people die. Originally, both of these weren't supposed to be a problem. Our whole world and our whole society and the earth itself was not supposed to be so messed up, and we were not supposed to die. Not originally, not when God first made us. So what happened? What caused all these problems? Well, in a nutshell, our rejection of God is what caused all these problems. How are we going to fix it? That's the question. How are we going to fix it? Some of us are fixers, okay? I have a little thing here with me today. If some of you who know me personally know that several years ago, I decided I'm going to collect Fisher Price stuff. I don't pay the big money for them, just a little bit. It's more nostalgic than anything, right? So we were in a thrift shop a while ago, and the worker knows me, and he knows that I try to collect these things. So he says, "Hey, I found this thing for you. I found this old Fisher Price thing." Some of you who are old, like my generation, or even older, and maybe your kids had these. I like the Fisher Price stuff and toys generally from like the 70s and 80s when I was born and growing up. And so he found this thing for me, and it didn't work. A little record player, so I took this thing apart, and I just had so much fun working on it and trying to figure out how does this thing work. And I found out how all the mechanical stuff works, and I got it working. I don't know, all of you people who like nostalgia. There we go, Fisher Price stuff. But the point is, I worked and I worked and I worked at this, and I figured out there was all these little metal levers and things in there, and I figured out how to do it. And sometimes I'll be doing things like that. My wife will look at me and say, "Really, is this really worth it?" But I think it is. Not so much that I need the thing working, but that if I get started on it, I gotta fix it. There were a couple things, I have one of those little moving TVs that I took all apart from Fisher Price, and just something wasn't right. I couldn't get it. Every once in a while that happens. But if you're like me, when you start it, you want to fix it, which gives us a problem when we look around at this world and we can't fix it. There's so many problems that we have, the things that we messed up in this world and with death, we just cannot fix it. Well, when we get to Hebrews chapter 2 and our study of Hebrews here, starting about in verse 5, we see that, yes, we have these problems, but the solution has already been made. Now, it doesn't look like it for now because we look around, we still have all the problems, but the solution has already been taken care of. So we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 2, verse 5. I'm going to show this to you up on the screen here. It says, "For he has not put the world to come, of which we speak, in subjection to angels. But one testified." Oh, by the way, why he's talking about angels, if you remember through the book of Hebrews, he's talking about how Jesus is better than anything in the law. This section right here is how Jesus is better than the angels through whom the law was given to Moses. So he's saying, look, Jesus is better than the angels. That's why we're talking about angels. He hasn't put the world to come under angels, but one testified in a certain place, saying, and he's going to quote here from Psalm chapter 8. So that's what this is. A lot of Old Testament quotations in Hebrews. "What is man that you are mindful of him, or the son of man that you take care of him? You've made him a little lower than the angels. You have crowned him with glory and honor and set him over the works of your hands. You have put all things in subjection under his feet, for in that he put all things are all in subjection under his feet, he left nothing that is not put under him." So our original task is to take care of the earth. When God first made man in Genesis chapter 1, it says that God created man in his own image. And what do you say? Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over everything that moves on the earth. So the point is that we were supposed to take care of things on this earth. How are we doing on that? I don't think that we're doing very good on taking care of the earth. God gave us this job. This is the job. Take care of the earth, take care of things. And we've messed up. We can't even get along with each other. We're supposed to work and take care of things, which, by the way, our purpose for being created is not to have fun and be entertained. Our purpose is to work, but work should be enjoyable when we are doing it as a response to God creating us. This is the reason we were made, so we're doing it. So Adam was given the responsibility of taking care of the earth, and he blew it. I mean, he couldn't even obey God. And so he was kicked out of the garden. And here we are even today. We can't get along with each other. We have, we pollute the earth, and obviously we need to go only so far with that. Man is more important than animals, and we don't want to be so wrapped up that where we worship environment. But for goodness sakes, we ought to take care of things. Don't litter. Let's not be dumping our sewage out in the rivers. Let's take care of things the best that we can. But we're not doing a very good job taking care of this earth or this world, our society, political posturing, wars, everything. And, it's just all these problems that we have. So we have this big problem. But we get to verse 9. We're going back to verse 8 in a little bit. When we get to verse 9, it's a very interesting phrase. It says, but we see Jesus. So we've messed all this stuff up, but we see Jesus who come along and he's going to fix all the problems. So it's interesting. Back in verse 5, he says, he hasn't, let's see, he has not put the world to come under angels, but he put it under men. So this is where the fact that Jesus became a man is very important. God gave this earth to man to take care of, and men blew it. So guess what? God himself, the Son of God, one part of the Trinity, became a man. Maybe I say one person of the Trinity, became a man and came to this earth. And he's the one who finally is going to be able to fix everything. We read toward the end of time when God's going to fix everything. Look in verse 8 here. It says, but one testified in a certain place, what is man that you're mindful of him? Or the Son of Man that you take care of him? You made him a little lower than the angels and crowned him with glory and honor and set him over the works of your hands. You have put all things in subjection under his feet. For in that he put all things under him in subjection under him. He left nothing that's not under him, but we do not yet see all things put under him. That's the point right there. Man was given the job of taking care of the earth. We blew it. Jesus came to take control, but everything hasn't yet been put under him. Obviously, as God, he is the creator. He's in charge of everything. But eventually he's going to fix it all, but it hasn't happened quite yet. He will fix it, but it's just gonna take some time. He is going to put this future world under man, the God man, Jesus. We read about the millennium when Jesus is going to come. He's going to rule here on this earth for 1,000 years, and everything is going to be much better. And then ultimately he's going to make a new heaven and new earth. Ultimately, a man is going to fix all these problems that we've made in the world. Unfortunately, right now, as it says at the end of verse 8, but we do not yet see all things put under him. Not yet. That's why we still have all the problems. That's why we still have all the wars. That's why we still have all the fighting, because Jesus hasn't yet taken control of it all. So that's one problem that we have. The problem that we have, I'm trying to make sure I'm working on my thing here correctly. The problem that we have created in the world, so many problems. But here's a second problem, is that we are headed for death. We are headed for death. Boy, this brings us so many problems in our world for us because, like I said, suffering, tragedy, experience somebody who died. The fact that our bodies are getting older. I mean, all of us old people who like Fisher Price, right? We're getting older, and after a while, things don't work quite right. And it takes a little bit longer to get out of bed sometime. You know why? Because we're all headed for death. This is not natural for people. Look at verse 9 again, where he says, but we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels. That just means he became a man, right? He took a position that was lower than angels. For the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, might taste death for everyone. So he could taste death for everyone. We were not supposed to die. This was not original to man. Adam and Eve were not supposed to die. That came because of sin. The consequences of sin is death. Romans 6:23. For the wages of sin is death. Death has caused us so many problems. That's why, we have to gather for funerals. We mourn over people who are no longer part of our lives. This is a natural. Sometimes we say, well, death is a part of life, and it is today, but it wasn't originally. It was not supposed to be that way. Man was not supposed to die. This is a problem that we have because of our sin. But then remember what the author of Hebrews says, but we see Jesus. Not only is he going to fix all the problems that we made in our world and on earth and in society, but he is going to fix the problem of death. In fact, he already has fixed the problem of death, that he, by the grace of God, might taste death for everyone. Now, obviously, it's only applied to those who put their faith in Jesus, but well, let me actually show it. I keep forgetting I don't have this up. That he, by the grace of God, might taste death for everyone. Every person can be forgiven if they just put their trust in Jesus. So you might have a question. Why do people die? I mean, if Jesus defeated death, why is it that people still die? And the answer is very simple, because death is a physical thing. The word death really just means separation. When we talk about death, we talk about our soul separating from our body. This is actually a good thing for believers, because if we did not have our soul separated from our body, we'd be stuck to live in this corrupt world, in this messed up world, all the time, all the time. And we would never be able to get out of it. And that's why the Bible says that it's precious in the sight of the Lord, the death of his saints. So people who are believers in Jesus, when they die, they're separated from this wicked and this sinful world, and they get to go and they get to be with God. That's actually a good thing, but it's not eternal. It's not eternal separation from God. That's what we deserve because of our sin. Death, which is physical, but then there's death, which is spiritual, which is eternal, separated from God, never being able to be in his presence, never experience his blessings. That's what hell is. Hell is a literal place of torment and burning. The Bible tells us with fire, all those kinds of things. Why? Because it's separated from God. There's nothing good there. Where those who put their faith in Jesus, they go on and they have something to look forward to. That's why when you go to a funeral, you don't have to, well, for a Christian, obviously you need to be sad. I mean, you should be sad, because I don't get to make more memories with these people, but they get to go, and if they're a Christian, they are in the presence of God. So yeah, they've experienced physical death, but not eternal death, because one day God is going to reunite their bodies and their souls together. Why? Because he's fixed these problems. And one day we'll be able to live on an earth where God has made everything new for 1,000 years, and ultimately on the new earth where everything will be great forever and ever. But even now we can have encouragement, because death has been defeated, right? We talk about that around Easter time. Death has been defeated because Jesus took our place, so we don't have to have the eternal estrangement from God anymore. God the Father looks at his Son, and his wrath is satisfied. Thank you for joining me in another study of Hebrews, and I hope you'll join with me on the next one. God bless.